Lebanon, from the crest of Armona, the heights of Sunir, the summit of Hermon, from the lion's den and the leopard-haunted hills. You've stolen my heart, my sister, my bride, with one glance of your eyes, one jewel of your necklace. Like a lily among the thorns,
Check, check. Can you guys hear me in Zoom? Yes? All right. Hey, I pushed all the right buttons. Look at Alyssa. The wind is blowing in her hair. That's awesome. Man, oh man, oh man. Wow. So at 7 o'clock this morning, I got hit with this allergy thingamajigger that I don't know. And it literally went for, I don't know, till about 2 in the afternoon. It's crazy. I couldn't even do 2-minute warning. I tried doing 2-minute warning. I actually came here and was ready to go and was going to launch it, but it was like, it would have been silly of me to do that. So I don't know. I don't know what else to do about it, but sorry for missing out on 2-minute warning. I don't know. Hey, it's Monday night. My name's Alan Aguirre. They're like, what is he talking about? Is this the right place? This isn't very professional. Yeah, no pretense here. What you see is what you get. WYSIWYG. Remember that? Anyway, Alan Aguirre, you are watching the Exodus to Ingathering Monday Night Devotional. And this is our social media. I love social media. Social media is one of the greatest things that's ever happened. It's unfortunate that man doesn't know how to steward things without, doing what they do. But I think it's one of the greatest things we've ever come out. Oh, hey, we've got a store. We've got a resource. We have resources available to you. We've got this calendar that pretty important type stuff. And that's where you get that stuff. And if you ever need to get a hold of us, be sure to send an email to us. Here's a couple emails that we have. Info. We'll get you some info. But if you want actual feedback from us, and if you have feedback for us, feedback's a good one because the lovely Lisa helps me do all that silly stuff. Chameleon Church Show every Tuesday morning for the last 4 years. We've been doing it's a very organic, prophetic type of thing. We never know what we're going to talk about. God shows up about 95% of the time, which is that's a very good thing. That's every Tuesday morning, 8:45 a.m. Central. We where can you find it? Travelog, Facebook, Chameleon Church Facebook, and the Chameleon Church YouTube channel. See you in the morning. But right now, you're watching the Exodus to Ingathering Devotional every Monday night. We've been doing this for, over a year and a half. And we go through the Exodus to Ingathering Field Manual, the first one. This is our second time around. And I've got less than 20 weeks to finish the other one so that we can keep going without a break. I probably need a break. Hey, speaking of a break, the next couple weeks in July, I probably more than likely won't be available at all because I've got family coming into town and we're going to go do family stuff. Which means we're going to be, out and about and doing things with grandkids and children and all that. And we'll probably do that for a couple weeks. So we might not see you for a couple weeks. If I can show up, I will show up. But if not, be sure to watch the Facebook pages and all that and the band, and we'll let you know if we're coming or not. But right now, I'm thinking that the next couple weeks, I won't be around. But that's good. It's good. Family is important. Family is more important than the majority of the stuff we think is important. Family is more important than all of that. So I actually believe that, which is why I still have a family. Packets. Exodus Ingathering. Hello, everybody. Cool. All right. We are on week 31. This is a rough one. It's a rough one because let's just see why let's find out. But it's a rough one. You're going to have to do some reading on your own simply because, you should have already done the reading on your own, simply because it's a bit rough to just kind of like talk about this stuff. It's a rough one. Let's see what happens. Week 31, His steadfast love, Father, that you would give our hearts a revelation of just how much you love us. I do not have slides, for the mountains may depart and the hills be removed, but my steadfast love shall not depart from you, and my covenant of peace shall not be removed, says Adonai, who has compassion on you. That alone is enough for us to just sit here and, what's the word, Selah, regarding just what it is that we read. Let's read that again. Isaiah 54, verse 10. For the mountains may depart and the hills be removed, but my steadfast love shall not depart from you. Wow. And my covenant of peace shall not be removed, says Adonai, who has compassion on you. Steadfast love, Hebrew, hesed, appears 196 times in the Old Testament, in the English Standard Version alone, with 127 of those times in the Psalms. The psalmist of Psalm 136 reminds us in 26 ways how God's steadfast love endures forever. Abounding in steadfast love. What a defining characteristic. Hesed is a love based on covenantal commitment, a loyal and faithful love. It translates into kindness, philia, and agape love, and the loving mercy the Father has toward his creation, man. The word hesed is the descriptor par excellence of God in the Old Testament. The word speaks of a completely undeserved kindness and generosity done by a person who is in a position of power. This was the Israelites' experience of God. He revealed himself to them when they were not looking for him, and he kept his covenant with them long after their persistent breaking of it had destroyed any reason for his continued keeping of it. Unlike humans, this deity was not fickle, undependable, self-serving, and grasping. Instead, he was faithful, true, upright, and generous always. The Lord, or Adonai, a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness, keeping steadfast love for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin. The story of Ruth is a good example of hesed between humans as depicted in Ruth 1:16 through 17. But Ruth said to Naomi, "Do not urge me to leave you or return from following you. For where you go, I will go, and where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there will I be buried. May Adonai do so to me, and more also, if anything but death parts me from you." A father in the modern Torah movement, you could say, Don Finto, a friend of ours, he's in Nashville, wrote a book about your people shall be my people and your God my God about Torah years ago, early on, way early. You guys check it out. The Ruth and Naomi deal with the kinsman redeemer. Pretty darn important. I'm sitting here trapped by my own decision to title and make the subject of this devotional 2 words, steadfast love, that have been used over and over and over again in lyrics, articles, sermonettes, and yes, devotionals. It's not like me to give in to conformity so easily. It's over 16 hours later, and I have resorted to social media as my out by asking others what they think of when they hear the term steadfast love. Here are some of the responses. Just a word association, long-suffering, patience, kindness, even in frustration. Yah's agape love is long-suffering. If we're impatient, then we're unlike Yeshua. Agape is long-suffering and forgives 70 times 7, and then keeps right on. Covenant love, it never stops flowing. I looked up the meaning of steadfast a few days ago after reading Psalm 107, and the similar words say so much about the intense love the Father has for us. Someone else said, I think of the words unconditional and unselfish. Wife says, through mood swings. That's a good one. enduring patience, kindness, loyalty, and faithfulness. And someone else said, no matter what you do, I will always love you. Covenant loyalty. Through our human ups and downs, his love is pure, reliable, continuous, everlasting. And yet another, steadfast love endures ups and downs and never questions. And then my friend Randy, who's a bit, he commented with Ezekiel 16. The premise for our Exodus to Ingathering series, E2iS, is the Apostle Paul's warning in regard to Israel's journey, their exodus from Egypt to their ingathering in the Promised Land, from 1 Corinthians 10, 1 through 12, where Paul states, now these things happened to them as an example, but they were written down for our instruction, as a warning, on whom the end of the ages has come. That would be you and I. Paul states what happened to our older brother Israel, and make no mistake about it, Israel is our older brother. We were adopted into Israel as sons, joint heirs, through the shed blood of Jesus, something that is completely lost on Christianity. What happened to Israel in the desert, as recorded in the books of Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, was written down as a warning and for our instruction. Our being the end times New Testament church, and written down so that we don't repeat their mistakes, as the Message Bible aptly puts it. Their mistakes cost them their lives, physically and spiritually. In fact, Paul says in verse 5 of 1 Corinthians 10 that with most of them, God was not pleased, and they never made it to their prophetic destiny, their prophetic inheritance, the Promised Land. So, what did Israel do? Ezekiel 16 is a difficult read. 58 verses of detailed harlotry on Israel's part. God tells Jerusalem, through the prophet Ezekiel, that when she was born, her umbilical cord hadn't been cut, and she wasn't washed or cleaned. No one showed her sympathy or compassion in that vulnerable state to wash or clean her, and instead she was thrown out into a field. She was hated from birth. I passed by you and saw you flailing about in your blood. As you lay in your blood, I said to you, live and grow up like a plant of the field. You grew up and became tall and arrived at full womanhood, yet you were naked and bare. I passed by you again and looked on you. You were at the age for love. I spread the edge of my cloak over you and covered your nakedness. I pledged myself to you and entered into a covenant with you, says the Lord God, and you became mine. Then I bathed you with water and washed off the blood from you and anointed you with oil. And you became mine. God goes on to tell her how he bathed her, washed the blood off of her, and anointed her with oils. He clothed her with embroideries, dressed her in fine linen, and lavished her with expensive clothes and jewelry, bracelets, a necklace, rings in her nose and ears, and a beautiful crown for her head. Sounds so much like what the Father did with his prodigal son. She becomes a very beautiful queen, so beautiful that she becomes famous among the nations. The glory given her by Adonai our King made her beauty perfect. But you trusted in your beauty and played the whore because of your fame and lavished your whorings on any passerby. You took your sons and your daughters whom you had borne to me, and these you sacrificed to them to be devoured, as if your whorings were not enough. You slaughtered my children and delivered them up as an offering to them. And in all your abominations and your whorings, you did not remember the days of your youth, when you were naked and bare, flailing about in your blood. Then we hear him say things like, how terrible it will be for you because of her continual sin against him. He begins to detail her whoring, her places of pagan worship, her misuse of her body on every street corner where she offered herself to anyone that passed by over and over again, and her shameful acts with Egypt, Assyria, and Babylon. He continues on about how they didn't satisfy her and how it only angered him against her. Adulterous wife who receives strangers instead of her husband. You took your clothes off and made love to them. You did it again and again. You worshipped other gods. I hate them. You even sacrificed your children to them. My anger burns against you so much that I will sentence you to death for everything you have done. God explains how he's going to strip her in front of her lovers and how they will turn on her. Verses 40 and 41 are especially not pretty. They strip her, remove her jewelry, and leave her naked and bare. It really isn't pleasant what's done to her, what God does to Israel for her spiritual adultery, what God does to us for our spiritual adultery. Then my burning anger against you will die down. My jealous anger will turn away from you. I will be calm. I will not be angry anymore. You did not remember the days when you were young. The things you did made me very angry. So anything that happens to you will be your own fault, announces the Lord and King. You added impure conduct to all of the other evil things you did, and I hate all of those things. And he keeps going. I've always found it fascinating how the Romanized Western Church, that would be everything from Catholicism to Protestantism, including evangelicalism, believes that they are absolutely immune to this side of God, regardless of their position with him, because of Jesus. That's not even sound theology. We should come up with a buzzword for that. Sacrosanct privilege, maybe. We believe that we have a pass because of Jesus, regardless of whether or not our lives actually reflect him, and regardless of whether or not our lives bear the fruit that Jesus himself says is the sign of one that truly is known by him. Proximity. Funny, Israel thought and said the same thing about God. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever one sows, that will he also reap. For the one who sows to his own flesh will from the flesh reap corruption, but the one who sows to the Spirit will from the Spirit reap eternal life. But I digress. My point is this, and it will always be this. More than half of the Old Testament is the account of Israel's gross disobedience towards God. They had everything they required to serve him successfully. Jesus says this at least twice. But Israel still decided to make the choice to not be obedient. Contrary to everything you have ever been taught and or told, we are exactly like Israel, and we will suffer the same consequences as Israel because we have the same laissez-faire attitude as Israel. We just throw Jesus into the mix. To clarify, Paul says perfectly clearly in our premise that Israel was saved in the desert. Regardless, God still killed them off because of their disobedience. And this is what Paul, not me, is warning you about in 1 Corinthians 10. So, to avoid any and all possibility of being on the wrong side of all this, all we have to do is make sure that we're not committing spiritual adultery in our lives and that we are actually keeping God's commandments. If you have any doubt about that, read the letters of Paul and be sure that you're not doing the things that he lists in his letters that will definitely keep you out of heaven and lead you into death. Pretty simple, right? Because, yes, thus says the Lord God, Adonai Elohim, I will deal with you as you have done. You who have despised the oath, breaking the covenant. Yet I will remember my covenant with you in the days of your youth. Let me repeat that. Even though even though we're going to break and forget the covenant, I will deal with you as you have done, you who have despised the oath, breaking the covenant. Yet I will remember my covenant with you in the days of your youth, and I will establish with you an everlasting covenant. Then you will remember your ways and be ashamed, but not on account of my covenant with you. I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall know that I am the Lord, that I am Adonai, in order that you may remember and be confounded, and never open your mouth again because of your shame, when I forgive you all that you have done, says Adonai Elohim. That's his said. That's God's steadfast love towards us. For you, Adonai, are good and forgiving, abounding in steadfast love to all who call on you. I'll be right back. Ba-dum-bum. Hello, everyone.
Hey.
I was wondering how quick you were gonna. I was wondering how quick you were gonna be on the draw today, and there you are.
Well, you gave me the opportunity. I was going to say, Alyssa looks like a rock star, man. She's doing a photo shoot over there.
Right? It's awesome. Alyssa, go like this.
Hi, Rebecca.
In slow-mo.
No. Like a shampoo commercial.
In slow-mo. Wait. What did you say, Alyssa?
So it's like a ship. No, what are you going to do?
There you go. Just big old screen.
No.
She's like, no, what are you going to do? She knows me too well. That's awesome. I know the whole time I'm sitting here, like, really getting into the spirit. I'm like, what is that? Oh, it's Alyssa's hair. Because it's like the only thing moving. Oh, my gosh. Dude, you look like you've got a photo shoot going. You should do some fake flashes just to freak people out that don't know what's going on. Oh my gosh. Man, I'm telling you, dudes and dudettes, that is some heavy stuff. Heavy stuff, man. See that tape right there? Yeah, I'm waiting for a banner to come that's going to go right there. I can't. Yeah, just my friend Randy, who I mentioned in the, I tell people that names have been changed to protect the. No, that's not true. I actually call them by their real names. I was letting him know. Oh no, Randy is he's that guy. He's kind of intense. We met him at a music festival in Kentucky. He was there from Florida, and we were on tour. And he just started serving. He had dreadlocks and saw, I don't know, something about us really endeared ourselves to him. And he just started serving us. And anyway, that's how we became friends. Yeah.
So I actually do have something to say, except for aside from just hey.
What's up? How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. How about you? How about y'all?
I'm doing good. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do this tonight. I mean, I was really freaking out about my nose. I was just uncontrollable sneezing.
Wow.
Weird. But hey, I'm here. I'm stuffy, but I'm here.
You're stuffy, but here. Well, we won't call you stuffy.
Yeah, well, you can.
Hey, so I keep saying this over and over again to different people, and I realized when I said this, well, I'm going to say it anyway. I call it doing the hokey pokey, because it's put your right foot in, put your right foot out there. You know, it's all this unsurety about people and their beliefs and walking away from it and coming back to it, and this is what we believe. And then had somebody the other day, we were talking about clean food and food that's not food, or, you know, unclean things that aren't food. And I went into Acts 10 a little bit, and they said, well, that's not what that means, you know, about people. And then I said, no, it's about Gentiles, etc. And I explained it a little bit. And their joke was, does that mean we can eat people?
Wow.
And I just, you know, I laughed it off. I figured, well, that's the end of that one. So, you know, I just, it's, yeah, they love Jesus. There's no question about that. And by a lot of the things they do, it's obvious they love Jesus. But beyond that, it's like trying to get through a brick wall sometimes. And I'm not trying to be mean or, you know, or anything. It's just, it's frustrating because you love them. And I just keep reminding myself, be Josh and Cal, be Josh and Cal.
Be what?
Josh and Cal, Joshua and Caleb, they put up with this for 40 years. And so, you know, us putting up with it for however long is nothing. And we're not out in the sand and you know, all that either. And then it's, pardon me, but when I just thought of it before I said it tonight, and I thought, wow, this really lines up with Ezekiel 16, because you think about it that way, it's really crass. And that's God. That's what God was laying down. And then I wanted to share real quick too. I'm hearing 7 assemblies in Revelation verbiage in Ezekiel 16, so I'm going to go back and take a look at that for specific references. And it also, I think, aligns really well with the current Torah portion in the Sons of Korah.
Yeah, funny how that happens.
Yeah.
It's I think it's just so much easier for us to disassociate ourselves from heavy hitters like what we, you know, in that Ezekiel chapter. It's just so much easier for us to go, oh, that's not the same God, you know, because of Jesus, you know, God's not angry like that, or he wouldn't be angry like that with us. So, you know, it's just easy to just dismiss it. Most people, because it's been dismissed in their theology and what they're being taught, have never really read that stuff. They don't actually know that stuff is in there, I don't think, you know? And so, you know, that's why I mentioned we just throw Jesus into the mix. Jesus, we have a free pass. We're not really don't need to really fear judgment from God, because he's not like that anymore. And then when you know, like you said, you mentioned Acts 10, and then they say, well, you know, it's that mocking spirit, that deflective mocking spirit. Here's the thing I try to remind them of, because they really don't believe or understand that this is the same God that we're dealing with, the one that is found in Ezekiel 16. I remind them of Ananias and Sapphira. The Holy Spirit killed 2 people for lying, like just killed them dead. Didn't even have a, you know what I'm saying? And if they read Revelation and they read it properly, they would see that this God has not changed. That's why I think that's why I said a few weeks ago, the same God in the garden that is looking at Adam and Eve and wondering why they're dressed in fig leaves is the same God today. The 6,000 years of man's history, he has no shadow of turning. We either believe that or we don't. He's either standing firm on who and what he says he is, and the covenant and the relationship and the parameters involved and the rules of engagement, or he's not. Because if he bends and goes up and down based on our culture, then it's I don't know. There's a Spanish word called flojo, which means it's kind of like I don't know. It's what is that word in English? It's you know, it's not firm. It's not steadfast. It's floppy, I guess maybe is the word. God's not
A
floppy.
seesaw?
Yeah.
Maybe a seesaw?
Maybe, yeah. He's
Up
not
and
floppy.
down?
Yeah. But yes, we still love these people. Our job is to love people into a right relationship with Messiah, right? Yeah, that's right, Alan. You got it right there. Alyssa with her hair. She turned the fan off. You turned the fan off, didn't you?
No, I'm trying to, I'm like self-conscious about it now, so I'm trying to keep it contained.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. I know you guys have some good stuff from this because this is a thick devotional. There's some thick content in this one.
Well, and I saw Tim's comment, and I totally agree. Said, "And we're the unfaithful bride," and keeping that in context, you know, we're not better than anybody else, and that's the place from where we should pray and intercede and everything else.
Yeah. I know it's a heavy subject matter, but is it that heavy? Everyone's too heavy?
Well, you did mention the garden, right? So one thing about that just continues to get to me, if the one who walked in the cool of the day is Messiah, in one of those times where he shows up throughout the so-called Old Testament, that he is proclaiming the curse that he himself intended to undo, to carry. And if that's not a picture of his steadfast love and his right to sit in judgment over us, I don't know what else is.
Alan, I think this is truly difficult for we puny humans to understand what real steadfast love is. Because I see the picture of all this whoring and I just go, how in the world does he come back to us? With all of this ugliness, this impurity, this mixing, and yet he comes back and we are his. He says, you are mine. It is almost unfathomable to my little brain to realize that truth of that.
Not only does he come back to us, he had to die in order to remarry us.
Yes. Yeah, it's like I have to learn how to breathe again with this thought.
Yeah, this superficial thing they've been teaching us for so long is just it doesn't give any justice to the reality and the depth of what it is that we find and that we unearth as we get deeper and we go further up and further in, you know? They make it so trivial. They make it so trite, Christianity. When it's so much heavier. It's so much deeper. There's so much more involved. Which and again, in turn, it's designed to bring us closer to him, not to push us away, but to bring us closer. Because, right? Oh, this is how much I'm loved. This is how much you love me. And because of that, I want to, right, position myself accordingly.
Yes, but that's a sense of maturity. It's like I feel like I'm a infant that doesn't quite understand what the Father is trying to tell me, and yet I have the wherewithal to be able to screw things up so properly that He has to die for me. That's incredibly is just unimaginable. Oh. It's hard for me to wrap my head around it.
It's awe. Right? It's awe-inspiring.
Yes. Yeah. And it's so true that we are just not taught the depth of this. No matter how, emotional or touchy-feely things come across the pulpit, it's just not deep enough to really understand this.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why the Word is so important to read with the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
Waking us up. Yeah. So.
Well, I agree with what Cynthia's saying. I think if you stop to think about how we live and what we get comfortable with, it's very difficult to get comfortable with a concept that you have no kind of earthly role model for. So when we talk about steadfast love, our human experience, I don't know that we ever experienced something like that truly from somebody else. So how is it then that you're able to grasp something like that if you don't really have a role model? You know, we think about different cultures and how difficult it is for us to understand a different culture than ours and some of their practices. And it becomes very challenging for us because we haven't experienced it. We don't have a role model for that. And I think some of the most difficult changes we face in life and that take, I think in many instances, heroic efforts are those where we have to overcome some of those ingrained kind of cultural or lifetime experiences. That's not done easily. So I think for us to kind of step up in a way and wrap our heads around what is steadfast love? What does that really mean? And maybe you don't even think that's really possible. So you don't think that it can be true.
So you have a semi kind of a question in there. The role model piece. So Jesus said, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. And so we see examples of how Jesus was that, and then ultimately giving his life on our behalf. For what does it say? For rarely will one die for a righteous man, let alone an unrighteous man. And then to make it worse, he says we're supposed to love our wives in the same manner. Holy crap. That is like... Someone, I can't remember who it was. I wish I could remember who it was. I think it was, I don't know. And maybe it was at the ICLV that I heard it. But someone said, what if come Judgment Day, you're standing before Father God and it's time, you're up. Your name's been called. Your number's been called. Now you're at the throne room judgment. Oh, and he has you take a seat. And an angel walks in with your wife, and he stands your wife in front of him, and that's how you're going to be judged. Man, I'm screwed. Right? What if our judge, what if he judges us based on our wife, and vice versa? because we're supposed to follow this example of Jesus. If you've seen him, you've seen the Father. And Yeshua's whole example is how we're supposed to give our life ourselves for our wives and treat them like that, and in the same way, like Jesus gave his life for the church. So there's this massive cyclical concept going on here, and right. And so many times we find ourselves in the middle, watching this whirlwind around us, going like jump rope. How do I jump in? And without tripping or without stopping the flow? How do I live up to this? How do I live up to it as someone that receives this love? But then how do I function as someone that's been pretty much told to function at the same level, not only with our wives, but with our fellow man? So it's a tall order, but apparently he's given us the tools and he has equipped us with the ability to do so.
Pretty tall order.
It is, right?
And that's not just for the people you like. It's supposed to be for the ones you don't like too.
Yeah.
So how do you make all of that work?
I'm going to say we need to walk in humility. And I'm still trying to figure that out. Oh, man.
Well, I think that, I'm sorry, but I guess today words mean things. And when you talk about steadfast love, of course, that has a very significant meaning.
Yeah.
But humility too, because I think an understanding of God's definition of humility and an understanding of man's definition of humility are two very different things.
All right.
Yep. Monica, what do you got?
Well, I'm sitting here listening and trying to grasp everything. And when I worked on Saturday, I have a coworker that's somewhere in his late 20s. We sat down to eat, and he asked me, "Do you not eat pork?" I said, "No." And he's like, "Jew." And I just tilted my head, and I was like, "What?" And he goes, "Well, I'm a Gentile." And I was like, "Okay." So I did a spiel, I talked with him. But with this here, it's making me understand, correct me if I'm wrong, with God's love, it's enormous. So when he states that he's a Gentile, and if I can work with him and speak with him and maybe get him to learn, that is God's way of showing him how much he loves this person, no matter that he stated and actually spoke the words that he is a Gentile. Am I understanding this correctly?
Yeah, I mean, because it comes down more to humanity than whether we're Gentiles or Jews.
Mm-hmm.
So the concept is Gentiles are grafted into the olive tree of Israel, the Commonwealth of Israel. It says that all over the place in the New Testament. But then it says the real Jew is the one that has received Messiah.
Right.
So there's a I explained it in the feast book. There's there's your drink there. How we have you have national Israel, spiritual Israel, and then religious Israel. Jason's gone for his drink. So there's those pieces involved. But I mean, you got to remember the old, when it comes to the Bible, Gentile literally means pagan. They're like totally, completely separated from God in every possible way. Not just nationally.
Correct. And it's like, to me, my thinking is, okay, this is a child. He does not know what he speaks of. How can I help?
Sure.
And then also think of, okay, he's not willing to take the steps to let loose
Right.
of what's keeping him in that state of mind.
Right.
Where I was just telling my son, I said, yes, I don't eat. I used to love bacon. I would have bacon every single day. So it's the willingness to let loose of that item or whatever that you're worshiping, let it loose, and then walk in it and know that God's there and he will never forsake you, no matter what was done, what was said. That is his love for you and how much, what he had to go through to die for us.
Sure.
That makes sense.
Right. But remember, it's not about food or eating or drinking.
No.
So
no.
it's, so what we do is we love these people into a right relationship with Jesus. We love them regardless, even if they never come to Jesus. You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
It's like,
correct.
I mean, I go years with people and they may never come to Messiah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he knows. I mean, we've had conversation. He knows, but he's not willing to go the step. Take the next step.
We have a friend here in Utah who's, born and raised Mormon, left the Mormon church after he got back from his mission. A lot of them do. It's very interesting. They'll go on their 2-year mission and experience something and then, leave. And then they usually go to spiritualism or Buddhism or whatever. So he went to Buddhism. So he considers himself a Buddha.
Wow.
He's got, he literally has idols in his house and does, idol ceremonies around the dead of, his family or whatever. Anyway, we love this man and we love his children. And he's been a single dad for the majority of his children's lives. We love this man and his children. He's been to Shabbat. He's been to some feast days, I think, even. I don't know if he'll ever come to Messiah, but we will always love him and his family unconditionally.
Exactly.
And he knows exactly what we believe, obviously. We're not shy about it, but nicest guy. He'd make a great Christian. So
yeah, this guy too.
Yeah, day at a time.
Correct.
See, God draws men into himself. We can tell them about Jesus till we're blue in the face. We can have words of knowledge. We can heal them. We can, on and on and on and on. But until God goes ding and they come to the realization of their need for Messiah, God does that, see? And that's something, again, that's another thing Christianity hasn't figured out. And that's, some water, some reap, some sow. It's not a wham, bam, thank you, ma'am thing,
Correct.
So, in fact, I try, if anybody ever wants me to pray for them to receive salvation, I try to talk them out of it. I want to make sure they know exactly what it is they're getting involved with. It's not a light thing. It's not a trivial thing as it's been made into a very trivial thing. So, yeah.
Well, that's one thing to keep in mind as this approaching this Gentile or self-assessed Gentile, that this is the opportunity that we have to approach Messiah, to be brought into the gift that he has given Israel, to be a part of his purpose with them, and to be grafted in, to be joined into the flow of life that he has promised to his people, his nation. And the biggest aspect of that goes back to Jesus's reading of the scripture in the synagogue and ending when it says, and to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor.
Yeah.
And making people understand that we are in that year, we have an opportunity to become a part of his body. But also the second aspect of it is that his day is coming, and it's not going to be, all sing song, happy. It is the righteous wrath of the Father coming against a rebellious, sinful, broken world.
Yeah. They've kind of shown us just how broken they are over the weekend, didn't they? It's broken. It's so broken.
I think what I had is a little bit different, but you know, the whole because of Jesus part in this reading, I think there's such a, the whole buddy Christ concept, it kind of done damage. We don't really recognize the extent of our sin and our sinfulness to the effect it has on other believers, but especially with God. We're grafted into that olive tree, and if we're connected to the branch to the root, and if we eat something that's poison or do something that's harmful, it affects the whole tree. And so I think there's so much emphasis on the because of Jesus, we fail to really reckon the extent and the seriousness and the effects of our sin, especially with the Father. And I remember when I was in Bible college, it was the first time I saw Ezekiel 23, which is even more graphic. And it was a total head trip for me that something that graphic was in the Bible. But it's because we don't get it, that we're that adulterous woman, and when you talk about steadfast love, it would kind of be like having to watch porno movies of your wife with multiple friends, multiple strangers, doing the most depraved things that even more than you could imagine, and then having to get up and love that woman after watching all that defilement. And that's probably what it's like for Father. We have no idea the extent of our debauchery and our baseness and our whoredom, because we're so busy being pummeled with because of Jesus. It's almost like we fail to reckon the sinners in the hands of an angry God.
Yeah.
The depths of our pain that we cause. We're just focused on the quick fix and what it does for us. And then when you get to that point, and then when you realize his steadfast love for us after him understanding better than we do what we've done, it's absolutely just awe-inspiring. And I spent the last few years really focusing on being cognizant and aware of the holiness and the majesty and the supremacy of Christ, viewing the Messiah for who he is. And then I remember that through all that, he is the best friend I've ever had. There's been no one closer or more dear or more faithful. And it's staggering. It's absolutely staggering. And I think the church doesn't realize the damage it does by glossing over our sin and what sin is. And like my wife was having a discussion with her mom about, that Jesus had to die in order to be able to remarry us, in order to be able to save us. And it was, that veil was just intact. Someone who's been in church for years, they don't understand that you were bought with the most precious blood in all of creation.
She gets that. Just
She understands it on one level, but then not on another, about why he had to die because of the law and everything. It's intense.
Did we all just hear Chris in the background?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey.
Hi.
Hi. Good to hear you.
Good to hear you. I always think of Hosea because I really struggled with the book of Hosea when I was in the churchianity, because I was like, what is this about? I thought it was an awful story. Quite honestly, I didn't really understand. On one level, I kind of did, but I'm learning a lot more about what Hosea was trying to tell us and why it was included as part of the scriptures, because of, the adultery and then all of the things that he did and the love that he had, that steadfast love. So, broadcasting.
Yeah, there's just a real failure, I think, for us to see ourselves in adulterous Israel, to see ourselves as the Pharisee. Yeah.
That's why they have, it's so trivial that they run around telling everybody, I'm a sinner saved by grace. How more redundant and how can we eliminate the depth of what it is that we're talking about any more so than coming up with that ridiculous statement? Oh yeah, I'm a sinner saved by grace. It makes it trivial. And because we make it trivial and we trivialize it and we don't understand the depth of, this is considered adultery. Not only is it considered adultery, it's considered like extreme perversion. What that does is it waters down, it makes us what's the word? Desensitize to, is that the word? To the fear of God. When you read this passage in Ezekiel, that God looks at us, when God looks at our sin, that's how he sees it. And even then, he wants to love us and he wants to restore us and come back to us and bring us back to himself, on and on, right? That should germinate this intense fear of God, awe, respect, and love back for him. But if we trivialize it and if we make it, this sugar-coated, shallow thing, it takes that, we rob ourselves of a depth of understanding. We rob ourselves of a depth of love. We rob ourselves. And the enemy, right? That's what the enemy's job is. The enemy is so behind our not understanding exactly what it is that's going, because we are approaching it with a trivial human perspective versus God's perspective. We need to have the mind of God when it comes to just how defiled we are with our own sin, and our own perversion. This is how far we are from him when we sin, when we decide to do what we do that displeases him. It's this bad. Why is it that bad? Well, because here's how God looks at it. The mind of God, he looks at things with this cosmic beginning and end, string theory and everything in between thing. We're just going, duh. And that's all we do. We go, duh. It's only that. It's not that bad. It's only duh. It's only like that. And he's like, no, there's this huge thing involved that you've just voluntarily committed yourself to do, or that you've done. We don't understand the dynamic, the depth, the layers that are involved with what we do, what we say, what we think, our attitudes, our sin nature. We don't think of it like, right? Peter, no, Jesus, we're not going to let you go to Nazareth, back to Jerusalem and let them kill you. And he said that was demonic. He said, get behind me, Satan. Why? Because you're not thinking with God's thoughts. There's a big picture thing going on. We're supposed to be functioning with a big picture mindset, not this. Well, I just had one affair, or I just slept with her once, and it's not my wife. See, I mean, this goes on all right now. There's like gross layers of what we're talking about happening right now, across the street from our house, within a 5-mile radius. The amount of stuff that is going on that is at this level we're surrounded by it, and they don't think it's that bad. Look at what's happened over the weekend. They don't think it's that bad. They don't think it's that bad to do what they do, because it's my body, my right. See what I'm saying? That's the enemy's job. The enemy's job is to take the worst perversion and make it palatable, and make it and normalize it, and make it okay, and convince us that it's not that bad. Right? Look at what Lucifer, look at the conversation with Lucifer and Eve. Oh, you won't die. He knows that you'll be just like him. You'll know, It was this coaxing, seductive. Oh, you won't die. He said you would die. No, you won't die. You'll know the right and wrong like him. You'll be like him. Grooming. We were groomed. And we're constantly being groomed regarding the depth of perversion our flesh is capable of functioning in. As long as we don't think it's that bad, as long as we allow the enemy to convince us that it's trivial and shallow and superficial and it's not that big of a deal. Everybody does it. No one's perfect. We're all human. These are all the buzzwords, right? Right? And he wins. And God's going, no. What does God say? Let's see what does God say about that. Hold on, let me see if I can get back in here. Let's see what he says about it real quick here. Oh, yeah, hold on. Trying to find the right verse out of this devotional. This is what God says. I passed by you and saw you flailing about in your blood. As you lay in your blood, I said to you, live and grow up like a plant of the field. You grew up and became tall and arrived at full womanhood. Yet you were naked and bare. I passed by you again and looked on you. You were at the age for love. I spread the edge of my cloak over you and covered your nakedness. I pledged myself to you and entered into a covenant with you, says Adonai Elohim, and you became mine. Then I bathed you with water and washed off the blood from you and anointed you with oil. But you trusted in your beauty and played the whore because of your fame and lavished your whorings on any passerby. You took your sons and your daughters, whom you had borne to me, and these you sacrificed to them to be devoured, as if your whorings were not enough. You slaughtered my children and delivered them up as an offering to them, and in all your abominations and your whorings you did not remember the days of your youth, when you were naked and bare, flailing about in your blood. Adulterous wife who received strangers instead of her husband, you took your clothes off and made love to them. You did it again and again. You worshipped other gods. I hate them. You even sacrificed your children to them. My anger burns against you so much that I will sentence you to death for everything you have done. That's how he looks at it. See, it's not a petty thing. It's not a trivial petty thing. Oh, everyone does it. No one's perfect. I'm only human. And then he says that my burning anger against you will die down, and my jealous anger will turn away from you. I will be calm. I will not be angry anymore. You did not remember the days when you were young. The things you did made me very angry. So anything that happens to you will be your own fault. You added impure conduct to all of the other evil things you did. I hate all of those things. And then he says he will, essentially, he's going to restore us. Regardless of all that, if we allow him, right? If we allow him, if we repent, and if we align ourselves with his precepts, I will deal with you as you have done, you who have despised the oath, breaking the covenant. Yet I will remember my covenant with you in the days of your youth, and I will establish with you an everlasting covenant. Then you will remember your ways and be ashamed, but not on account of my covenant with you. I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall know that I am the Lord, in order that you may remember and be confounded, and never open your mouth again because of your shame, when I forgave you, when I forgive you all that you have done. See, the Father heart of God is for us. The Father heart of God is to restore us. Right? He doesn't want to condemn. He loves us. We're his creation. We're his children. He doesn't want to judge us to death. He wants us to course correct. He wants us to course correct and then serve him. It's that tall order thing we were talking about earlier. But he's capable of doing it.
I was just thinking about what was said before about not being able to really comprehend the concept of steadfast love. And I think that that is something that, I didn't comprehend, and for a very, very long time, and it just started really coming into a point of understanding that more. And it's been a really long walk, but I think that's part of what Alan is saying about the beguiling of the enemy, because the awareness, God has gone to extraordinary lengths, the way I see it, to ensure that we have an understanding of his steadfast love. From the garden, walking with him, he didn't need to do that. He could have dropped down a book, given them the ability to read, and said, well, there you go, now read that, I really love you. He could have said it in a whole lot of different ways, but he had a personal, intimate relationship with them. And then he ensured that for thousands of years, not only did they record this steadfast love, his faithfulness to them, in the provision and all these things and the way we're meant to do it and mirror that to everybody else, but he preserved it for thousands of years. It's not like it was something where it was in a vault and it was away from everything and it was easy, we could take it out. He gave people the skills to be able to understand it. When we look at it, all these scrolls found in a cave. And you look at it, and when I start to think about all the ways in which he did it, the thousands of years, he waited for perfect timing, for people to be there, for technology to be able to preserve it and unroll these things, to be able to go back and understand a dialect that hadn't been used. And I just look at that and I think, that's steadfast love. To then send somebody, the only person that ever witnessed to me, not just once, but time and again, like Alan said, we love this man. He's, going off in this direction. He's doing this, but we brought him into our house. We've spoken to him time and again. We're loving on this man and these children, and God sent one person in my life who for years spoke into my life and spoke into my life and spoke into my life until finally, one day it clicked. And I had that person many years later turned around and said, well, Alison, if you can be saved, anyone can be saved. I thought, I didn't think I was that bad. I was only a young adult. I wasn't out there robbing banks or doing anything really awful at all. So, but that was their perspective. They grew up in the church, and I thought, fair enough. But I look at that and I think, if God hadn't sent that one person, but he did. And they were there for a particular period in my life where they literally sowed and sowed and sowed, and it finally got into me. And I think that's steadfast love. And if I can look back at it all, and then you look at it and you read his word, you're going, he has steadfast love for Adam and Eve. Because even before Ezekiel, and that's powerful, you go, didn't he do the same to Adam and Eve? When I saw your nakedness, and I put my cloak over you, and I covered your nakedness, and I made you a way out of the mess you'd gotten yourself into, and yet you continued to go further into the world. And I think, and then he even says in his word, I've given you milk. I've given you one layer of my word so that when you're young in this, you can still feed and nourish until you can eat the meat. But I know that, for years and years and years, the meat was there. The whole book was there.
Yeah.
I didn't pick it up. I didn't read it. And he was steadfast. He was with me. And he says, what is it? If you go into the heavens, I am there with you. If you go down to the depths of Sheol, I am there. I thought that's steadfast love. Every single word in our Bible is dripping with the fact that he has steadfast love. And I think if we can, that's a lie of the enemy to say, oh, you don't have the ability to understand it because we don't have and this is just my awareness now, and I'm not saying I didn't have it for, this is not something I grasped a long time ago, but it's something that I've been grasping more and more over the last couple of years. That's the steadfast love that the enemy says, don't look at the whole book. Don't look at it. Close it up. Just read the little bit at the back. That's what you need. How do we understand that his steadfast love has been there from the beginning when he spoke things into existence, when they knew from the foundation of the world that we were going to do it? So they put a plan in place before the foundation of the world to ensure that he was going to put everything in there so he had no excuse, that creation itself would testify of him, that even if somebody didn't get to you, you had a testimony to you. That's his steadfast. I keep looking at it, everything, and going, that's his steadfast love. And I think it's a lie of the enemy again. They say, you don't have anything. You can't be expected to do that well or expected to do that. That's a standard you cannot keep, which is what they say about Torah. That's too high of an expectation for you because you haven't had anyone show you that. I'm going, actually, I have. And then you can say, well, he doesn't. And I've said it myself and I've heard it in the past. And I thought, yeah, that's true. Well, it doesn't have skin on. He's not really there. And I'm going, well, if you draw close to him, he'll draw close to you. And then he becomes as real to you as much as anyone can be. As somebody who's walking around your house or the poster that comes to the door or anything else, and he can have a conversation with because he says, if you call unto me, I will answer you. Well, isn't that what a person does? And then I think it becomes more realistic then about our offenses to him. Because if you can do something to somebody that's walking around your house or comes to your house and somebody you know or an acquaintance, then how much more that somebody who spent thousands of years ensuring that you knew how steadfast he was and how much he loved us. And then we do something or think something or say something, and then at the end of the day, I think it makes me more apt go, Lord, if you can still be soft to me after all these years and humanity, help me to continue to be soft towards, have a soft heart towards these people who, haven't been there for thousands of years, haven't done this to me or anyone else for thousands of years. And I think that's my journey in that. And then acknowledging it helps me to understand what it looks like. But it's also a process in Ezekiel. You were born, and I saw that they didn't want you. And I said, live. That to me is like salvation. But he waited until she was old enough to understand. And then he said, but then you're old enough, you're of age. Now I'll put my cloak over you. Yeah, and I see that progression. He's not going, hey, you're a baby. I expect you to get it all now. And I think that speaks of his steadfast love. It just drips from every word if we look and if we're willing to draw close to it. But I think the enemy says, I think like Alan said, I'm saved by grace. I'm good. I'm done. I trample over the blood. I don't have to draw closer. I read his word. I do this. I do that. I'm better than everybody else. And I think that's another lie of the enemy. You're doing really well. You're fine. I think if we look at it and go, am I a spotless bride for my husband? I don't think anyone's going to be until we get before him, but I think we should keep trying. But I think that's when we go, I need you. I need you more than I need the air I breathe, and you give me that every day as a gift. We start to understand.
It's more than sobering. We need to not want to be little whores.
But just what gets me is, how can we be when he loves us so much? You've got somebody standing there going, I know you did all that, but I love you so much. I love you so much. I did all these things for you. And they're just standing, and he's just standing there going, just love me. Just love me. And I think when you come to that realization, then you sit there and you think, how can you turn that down? Somebody who does nothing against you ever, but love you again and again and again. How can you turn that down and not try to go, I want to do everything I can for you? You know, somebody I heard recently said, you know, if we're going to fall forwards towards Messiah.
You know, he even loves us enough to send us Jesus to kind of lighten the seriousness of it all, you know? He sent him, you know, he shows up like a human like us, you know, to make it relatable, you know. He's a good Abba. I mean, think about being a parent, being a parent or a grandparent. We want to help them get from A to B easily. We want to remove stumbling blocks. We want to remove challenges. We want to not to make it dumb, not to dumb it down, no, but to make it, easier for them to get from one point to the other. If we can make the growing maturity lessons, easier. I mean, that's what he does for us. His heart is for us, not against us. It's a heavy one. It's a heavy one. Heavy duty. Man.
I'm so grateful to him. I don't know how else to express what I feel. I'm overflowing with so much emotion of trying to understand and scratching the surface, but I'm just so grateful he loves us.
How deep the Father's love for us, how vast beyond all measure, that He would give His only Son to make a wretch His treasure. How great the pain of searing loss! The Father turned His face away. His wounds which mar the chosen one, bring many sons to glory. It was my sin that held Him there until it was accomplished. His dying breath has brought me life. I know that it is finished. sun.